Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals, March 28, 2023.
That was, and so that's about all I can tell you right now until I meet with them and they come in front of this body. You won't know.
Okay.
No, I've not seen a plan or anything.
Okay. Well, I talked about the public safety aspect, and I'm speaking because I am in public safety. I hope that you all do a little bit of research prior to the April and look at the facilities that they have in Knoxville. One of the things I would suggest you do is call their 911 board down there. It's public record. You can find out anything that you want to through 911 about the number of calls that they run at the car mission down there now, as far as police, fire, EMS. Get the number of calls that they run at that facility. And just to have that in the back of your head, because, I mean, at this point, nobody knows what's coming out there, but we just want to, I'd like to stay a couple of steps ahead of it. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Brad Cunningham? Oh, you're good? Okay. All right. All right, we'll move on then. If there's no others, that's all the people who signed up for that. We'll get into our new business. The first item is a site plan review for the Danridge Travel Center on 1217 Deep Springs Road, Danridge, by BIR Transport. We have somebody here to represent them? Okay. If you come up, please.
This is the old TR truck stop down on Deep Springs. Most of y'all know where it's at. I wondered. Yeah. I thought years ago we should have been doing that. I know there's no place to park the truck.
Whenever you're ready, and if you'll just give David your name and...
Sure. I'm Brad Neff. I'm with Robert G. Campbell & Associates. I'm here to represent a client for BIR Transport. And if you have any questions as you look at the plans, please feel free to ask. I'll do my best to answer.
Sorry. That's really good.
I think it's sheet 3 to get a better feel for the size.
You'll have to give us a moment. We just got these, and
Oh,
so...
you just now looked at it for the first time?
Well, you didn't send out the other one?
It's all right.
David got the small one.
Okay, so...
One question I had, looking over down there today, and Tom may have more input on it, the sewer deal. Is that the one down there, is it working? I mean, it's probably not in years.
Probably not in years. That's
Are you
right.
going to use the same?
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to use the ground that is available for that purpose and put a system in there.
Have you met at all with Tom Carter?
I have not, no.
Okay. You've got questions on that?
Okay. I saw that you had applied for a permit for the system. The expiration date on it, I think, July 23rd of this year.
Okay.
And of course, I know you reuse it. But who is the company that's going to be putting that system in?
I do not know. I'll ask our client.
Okay.
Get back with you.
Yeah. I get Tom Carter.
Tom Carter. Do you know if
I
it's...
know that's state permitted, operation and everything, but we've had those previously in the county, and we like to make sure who's putting it in, and that we always have an as-built that we can go down and make sure everything's kind of going as planned before it's completed and somebody's left holding the bag. Not that I'm an expert on it, but, you know, just to make sure everything's in order.
Will do.
Yes.
That's the only thing I had a question on. It looks like it's gonna be a whole lot more parking than what's there now, which I'm sure the truckers will be glad to hear.
Go back even past,
That's
go
right.
up to the cell tower.
Okay. Looks like there's gonna be ample clean size.
Buildings in the same spot.
And we got some handicap spots right there.
Automobile parking, obviously.
So basically what we're gonna have is basically we're gonna have a fuel service system and there's gonna be a restaurant in here as well? Or is there?
Yes, he's got a drive-through plan that will, and he also has emergency escape in case it ever gets blocked.
Okay,
Like the new ones have. And he's going to have food available that way. And yes, it's going to be. I don't know exactly what's going on inside the store.
okay,
I just know that you can walk into it level
okay.
without going up a step.
I guess the thing is that I just wanted to make sure that whatever parking places that we have are ample for the type of business that he's going to have in there. And like I said, I didn't know how big of a restaurant that he was going to have per se. I mean, I know that there looks like there's ample spots for trucks, and then I looked at what's for just the vehicles, pedestrian vehicles there, and I just didn't know how big a restaurant he was going to have, and if the parking is going to be sufficient for the type of restaurant that he was going to have there, you know, or the size of restaurant he's going to have. But if it's a restaurant, you don't know if it's going to be a sit down or if it's just going to be a drive-through, correct?
No.
Okay.
I'll ask him.
Okay. Well,
Truck stops now, Terry, I mean, you've probably seen them, I mean, have the fast food places.
well, and that's why I say I wasn't just.
I don't,
I'm just.
they do sit down as much anymore. I mean, they might be a little bit, but
What if a
not
guy
like the
wanted,
good old days.
what if a guy wanted a 60-ounce steak?
Yeah, that's kind of
Well.
bad.
All right. So we have.
This is the place that used to serve those huge
Yeah,
steaks, right?
yeah, I know, yeah. I'm just.
If I can interrupt this bit, you might want that, you know, have on there, I'm sure the states, what, you know, follows up on some of these questions, but my question would be, you know, fast food, restaurant, showers, that all comes into play as far as the, septic, you know,
Right.
facility.
No, that's correct. And I don't think there's going to be showers.
No shower?
I'll find out.
I don't think I've seen them in there. I didn't think of that. He just probably doesn't. Usually truck stops have them,
Well,
but they don't have to.
if that's going to be part of it, well, TDEC will address that as far as design, will they
That's
not?
what I'm saying.
It'll be
I'm
included
listening
in
to a lot
size.
of unknowns, and they're just kind of basing, you know, I don't know what they based everything on from what I've seen that was handed in as far as the site plan for the system itself. I've not seen the specs on it, you know, how many gallon per day, you know, pertaining to foot traffic, truck traffic, anything like that.
They have not been
And of course,
produced yet.
all that
I glanced at
has a bearing on the size and the facility, and then on top of it, like they're going to have fast food restaurant there maybe, and then make sure
okay,
they
quite
address
honestly,
with
but
the,
you know, but,
if I have seen these
They will be.
facilities go in, and then they're not the capacity of what they're doing. You know, they change in the mainstream, but they don't contact about, well, our septic's not working now, and I know who they're gonna call if anything goes wrong. They're not gonna call
They're
you,
calling you.
they're gonna be calling our office.
I know. We're very alert to that issue, in fact. I mean, it's you guys that get the call. I understand.
How do you handle a dump station, RV dump station?
Well, I'm assuming it being part of that.
Would that be part of
It
it?
should go in, yeah, that's something that has to be,
Yeah.
into that.
Okay.
Sometimes you may need those on a separate line, and the reason I say that is because when you come in and dump, you actually just basically inundate the system that's there if it's just a normal system, and if there's any pumping or anything else that goes along with it can cause problems. But sometimes they put those on a separate system because they come to the conclusion that basically your normal system is getting this flow, but if you have come in and you dump a lot at one time, it can. I just know I've run into those problems.
I have that one. There's one road that goes up to the cell tower.
Okay, but is that just a right of way?
It's, well, it's actually in place. If you go back to one of the earliest pages, I can show you how it operates.
I saw that over there on the plan.
They have it coming out of,
Where's the other 88 parking place? It says 3 required.
Lunch down here at the dog.
I didn't hear that.
88 parking place, it says 3 required.
Now there's two showing.
Two showing, yeah.
Looks like he forgot to put the ADA symbol on the third one, which is right beside it.
Okay.
Which would make sense since it's got the
Yeah.
unload area.
Yeah, right there.
That can be
Yeah.
Access
handled.
aisle is right there, it'll service all three of those
Certainly.
spaces.
Okay.
Yeah.
First 3.
What's, is this from the cell tower coming back into the property? There's, at the rear of the property, of course, it shows,
What sheet do you numbered on?
6.
6, yeah.
That's going,
You see where at the top of the page where it comes into the parking area, a right-of-way, it looks like?
yeah,
Is that from the cell tower?
no. Cell tower's off to the left on it.
Okay. I see that, I thought maybe this was coming from it or something.
Well, if you turn the page to sheet 7, you'll go up the hill, and then you can see there's additional future gravel area there
Okay.
north of the main part of the site,
Okay.
and basically that could end up being parking.
Okay. Are you going to build this road at this time, or is that in the future?
Again, I don't have the hot answer on that, but in the future is, I think, what the answer is right now.
Okay.
I don't have the latest answer on that.
Okay.
But we were told it's market future use.
Okay.
So,
Existing water lines and whether or not we're going to need fire hydrants.
I'm looking for the sheet that shows where the existing water line is located on it. And I didn't see it. Maybe I'm missing it.
well, again, it goes to the issue of water and sewer. We're going to do them both at the same time.
So there's not water already existing to the side there?
I honestly don't know. There has to be. I mean, I'm willing to bet there is.
Okay. Only thing I was looking at is that I think that here in this instance, depending on the size of the water line and what's there, because I didn't see any fire hydrants.
We'll make sure we have hydrants as needed. Who do you have a fire marshal or?
It'll be Andy Riley is the one that will cover that from town of Dandridge. And
Is that Shady Grove?
It'll be Shady Grove water, yes. That's why I was curious as to what size line they got there, may determine how much flow and pressure that we have, whether or not we can even have a hydrant there, because they may not sign off on it, the utility company. But I think for what we're doing there, we definitely would need a hydrant, and I'm pretty sure what he'll want is that he'll want one as you come in, and he'll want one back here at the back probably as well, just off the top of my head. But, so we would need a recommendation from him as far as that goes for that. I just feel like a facility like this with the type of vehicles and the size of the building and everything else, that would be something that needs to be in there. So I do like the dog park.
I was gonna mention that, and I was like tickled to see that too.
Yeah, so, well, that's,
Because you really need it. I mean, they're doing it anyhow, so you might as well give them a place.
okay.
Is that parking down there by that dog park?
Yeah.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Being a dog person, I noticed that.
What about landscaping? I mean, there's probably existing already there, but so, since they're not really adding any new buildings, I guess would have new landscaping.
But we can list it in the landscaping plan, even if it's just proposed grass or whatever it might be.
Now, there's nothing over here, so. I'm pretty sure. No, that's just demolition. Okay, well, I think the site plan has met some of the requirements as far as it goes. I think you got ample parking, the existing building there, as far as that goes. We know that you've applied for your permit for your wastewater through TDEC and whatever recommendations they have, as long as Tom is happy with that at that point in time, then I think that we would be happy with that.
When we submit it to TDEC, we'll submit it to Tom.
Okay,
They'll get it at the same time.
okay,
And then they can both comment on it, or
okay.
look at you both as equals.
Because if it were approved, it would be subject to that, and so if that were not the case, then it would be a void site plan as far as it goes. The other thing is I definitely want to see the size of the water line that's there and where the fire hydrants are going to go for that. And I know we can go ahead and there, and we should be good. The parking, I just have to take it at face value because I don't know what's gonna all be going on in the building, but I'm pretty sure from just what's here, that's quite a few if you look. Yeah, you're gonna have about 50 spots there. That's,
I'm sure that would meet the minimum requirements.
I think so. I would think so for what's going on there. Okay. Is there street lighting that's already in place there, or is there new street lighting to be installed? It'll be installed. We're not responsible for that, but okay, it will be put on. Okay.
They'll probably.
Questions? After you look, any questions other than what's there? So David, based on what we know and what we have and what you've seen, what would be your recommendations at this time?
Well, Chairman, I'm hesitant to make a recommendation. I've reviewed it this evening. Basically, as we've sat here, I've not had a chance to review it in detail. It appears that it would probably meet the requirements, but I won't go there since I haven't had a chance to review it in detail. My initial look at this, it looks like it would be compliant, but
About 4 inch?
the proof is in the details sometimes.
No, that's not bad.
Sorry about that.
You and I are on the same page.
I think you rolled it the next month to get Tom had a better look at it?
I had 11 by 17 I got today, but I didn't have a chance to, it's hard to look at it and scale and that sort of thing, and so anyways, that's,
You guys.
I'd like to look at this closely, more closely. Not to try to tear it apart, but to just make sure it meets the requirements.
And we receive it.
Okay.
Your company does good work. I've reviewed a number of projects you all have done, and anyway.
Thank you.
All right, so I know that those are some of the items that I have, and basically, what worries me now is if we don't have ample water line there, is the fire protection that would be there. I think you said it was showing up as a 4-inch line.
So it goes as 4 inch.
Okay. I would prefer a 6-inch.
Yeah.
That's what's going to be necessary for fire hydrants, and
Or a tank could be done.
a tank. Yeah, you're right. A tank could be done as well. So
Sufficient.
it would work as far as that goes. Yes. Okay. All right. So I'm open to suggestions. How would you feel comfortable with? Do you think it needs some more work? Okay. So we could roll it to next month.
Well, maybe postpone it till next month.
Okay, I got a proper motion to roll this to next month. Do I have second?
Second.
And second. All right, everybody understand? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, sir.
You know what they need for next month. Okay.
Yeah, I heard it all, wrote it down. All big property.
It should be, yeah. You know, a lot of it.
I think that's a good way to handle it, Chairman.
Okay. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, I am.
Okay, the next item is a rezoning request from A1 to C2 for property at 2115 Chestnut Hill Road, Danridge by Chestnut Hill LLC. Do we have somebody here to represent them? Yes, sir. If you want to come on up.
How are you? Ian Holback, new to the area. Was hoping to put a garage here for myself.
Yeah, he basically want to do what, Pistol, is that how you say Pistol?
Mike Pistol.
Mike Pistol, you know, we rezoned that several years ago for them to have their construction equipment there, which is what they have to have C2 to do that. It's right next to that property. It's on the Highway 92. So,
No disrespect to Mike, but it's gonna be quite neither.
yeah.
Okay.
And you're next door to that property?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure it keeps it straight.
So if you see that if you see on the map, there's C2 there, so this is going to C2.
There's an old house there, but I don't think it's livable.
Okay. So is there 2 parcels here?
Correct. I thought we'd just make it one.
Okay. All right. They're joined. Okay. So David?
I don't have a problem, Chairman. It's not really spot zoning, it's extension of an existing zone.
Okay. You realize this will, if this, so with this board, it will be our recommendation to go to county commission for the rezoning. That's all we can do on recommendation. Okay. Any questions?
It's also on a major highway.
Yes. Any questions in regards to what he's looking for and the circumstances that are there? Being done, I'm open to a motion.
Make the motion, please.
Okay, you got
Rezone.
a proper motion to rezone from A1 to C2? And a second? And a second, okay. Now discussion. All right, being done, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
This will go to county commission now.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You ready to vote the next one?
Yep, ready.
Okay. The next item is a rezoning request A1 to C2 for property at the corner of Kinder Lane and Chestnut Hill Road in Danridge by Mr. Max C. Mull Jr. If you come up, sir.
This is, before you get to this C2 property, and he wants to do the same deal for his construction equipment and on it.
There is also somebody here who would like to speak as well on this rezoning. First, is there any questions for Mr. Mull right now? Okay. All right, being none. Deborah Davis,
Yes, sir.
if you would like to speak to this board in regards to this matter? Okay.
My name is Deborah Davis. I'm an eighth generation Jefferson County on one side. My husband and I own 5 acres on Kinder Lane. We've owned the property since 1982 when we bought it from Miss Dixie Miller, the original owners of the property, for many, many years. We don't live over there. Our home's in Jefferson City. I have a nephew there. The actual Kinder Lane comes from my sister's family, her in-laws, and I just really feel like commercial, our residents, our property over there is not in the best interest of Jefferson County. I do know that what goes on here tonight does go before the commission, if you approve, disapprove, whichever. I've been present numerous times at the Jefferson City Planning Commission, but this is my first time here. But these 5 acres are very near and dear to my husband and I on Kinder Lane, and I just did not see how this could be a positive. I've been there when they would be trying to put a mobile home in there, different kinds of things. It's very narrow. I remember when they put up the guardrail because poor old Tom Esslinger couldn't get in there without running off the road. We could have a little drink. So I have been there a while. I just don't think it's in the best interest for Kinder Lane or Jefferson County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Questions, David? Again, what is your recommendation based on what we have?
Well, we've been consistently rezoning property in that area for the requested reason. I don't feel strongly one way or the other. I'm sympathetic to the residents or the property owners in that area. Anyway, it's a difficult call. It is on a main highway, and there are similar uses and similar C2 areas in the area.
It's A1 now?
It's A1.
A1.
I think Mike, Terry,
Yeah, I was gonna say that on that property, you come off 92.
Yeah, it doesn't come off.
It doesn't come off 90. I mean,
It comes off 92, or his part, but.
Yeah, Kinder Lane's a little road, so my report comes off of 92.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Mull? Or,
How many acres is that?
He's in that lot. 5 acres?
You have C2 around it.
Yeah, we just did the 2.
just right down the road.
Just right down the road.
Yeah. But there's not any C2 that adjoins us, but there's C2 just right down the road from us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, well, I'll entertain.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Got a proper motion? And second, okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Thank you.
Go in September, or next month. April.
Okay, Dave, you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, go to item D, which is discussion of the land use plan, possible rezoning Jefferson County time permitting. But also during this time, I think it would be, well, we can do it at either other business as well, but if you want to discuss some of the issues that the people have talked about tonight, you know, that being said, there are some things here that we don't know. We know that they sort of planned to do something there, possibly, but we haven't seen anything on paper yet to know what the scope is. And So I've heard some of the things that the people said about the road, the safety, and those types of things, which we try to take into consideration when we look at all developments in Jefferson County. You know, sometimes it's tough calls on this, that, whatever, but one thing that we try not to do at least is sacrifice safety, especially when it comes time, when we're putting our first responders in precarious situations. So that's one thing that we try to take care of it most of all. So, you know, this basically still falls under as part of the land use plan, because it also falls under our road plan. Because we have major roads and minor roads and arterial roads and things of that nature. And so, and we have had situations in the past where developers have come and we made them make a decision on whether or not they may need to improve the road to do their development. And then there are times that, but typically a lot of times what we do is we rely on Charles Tipton. He's our road superintendent. He's the one that maintains the roads. He knows the conditions as far as that goes. And so a lot of times, if we feel that there's a road or something that basically will not handle a particular traffic for either a development or whatever it's going to be, and we rely on him, he says, yes, I think it's okay, then we're good. If he says, no, this road is substandard at the time, it needs to be brought up to handle that kind of traffic, then that's what we rely on. So, you know, because we're not road professionals we're here on this board. I mean, we see things because we've grown up in this county, and we see the conditions of some of the roads that we drive on, and we know how they develop and everything else, and we know that basically sometimes that they're just one-lane roads and everything else. But the thing is that Charles would have the final say, in my opinion, on sometimes on these roads, whether or not they're safe to handle the development and the traffic that's there. I mean, if y'all disagree with me, you can speak up right now, you know, or if you've got some other things you want to interject in regarding that, then you know, I'm willing to listen. The other thing is that we look at a lot of times for infrastructure are the utilities that are available, and you know, depending on the type of developments there, what we feel comfortable with as far as available utilities and things of those nature, then that's something else that would be taken into consideration. There are times that we've made developers make upgrades for water systems and things of that nature if it was close by, which is under our purview to do that very thing. And so, and we've done that in the past, but not always. You know, there comes a point in time when, you know, if you live in Chestnut Hill and the water's 14 miles away, we're not going to make you run water 14 miles away to cut 5 lots off of tract of land. You know, this Karn thing, I have no idea what it's going to come to us as, what kind of development at all. And so, without us knowing the scope, you know, I know that y'all are looking for some answers, but without us knowing the scope, it's going to be really hard for us to even come up to any idea of what's going to be required to make this development work if it comes at this time. But I do know that some of the issues that you addressed will be addressed when we look at whatever's presented to us.
When does TDOT get involved in stuff like that?
Not in county roads.
Oh, it's a county road?
No, this is a county road, so they won't be involved. But that being said, a lot of the things that we have in our road program, and you look at some of our guidelines that may come from some of the TDOT road standards that are there. So, you know, for instance, you're always trying to look at grade, line of sight, those types of things, radius of curvature, you know, if you've got and speed limits, those types of things a lot of times come from TDOT guidelines. And we try to implement them because if they're safe enough for TDOT, then they should be safe enough for us in Jefferson County. So those are some of the things that you look at in establishing, and I'm sure Charles does a lot of times as well, in establishing what the speed limit is going to be on the road. You know, and the other thing is there ample signage? Are there blind spots? Those are the kind of things that typically need to be looked at. A lot of times what we have is a lot of times your engineer or surveyor is the one that's supposed to be looking at those things. They don't always, okay? They don't always, and You know, and that's not to say that we haven't missed some. And there's some that slid by us that, you know, that basically come out, when you go out and you look and you're saying, hey, I'm pulling out my new driveway and I can't see 25 feet either way. And, you know, in which case, we probably didn't do enough due diligence. We relied upon a professional and they may not have done their job and it may have gotten by us. But, you know, I don't know. Well, I mean, if we need to make discussions, if you think we need to make changes to some of our guidelines that we have for developments, then speak up.
What, Tim said, you said that, it's an allowable use in A1. Did he give you any idea of scope or project or?
No, it was, he sort of, I mean, he was talking about a PUD, planned unit development. I don't know how many buildings, he didn't say. He just asked me, and I contacted David, and we discussed it, and it was allowed use in A1, PUD is, of course. But, and I told him, like I said before, the road's your biggest problem. I even didn't think about the water, but that would be too.
Well, I'm not saying that it would be a problem. I'm just saying it's hard for us to make a decision.
But I don't know how many
without
buildings. He was just doing his due diligence. He first thought it was zone rural resort. And that's where the nuns are. And they had it all mixed up. So they wasn't buying it or thinking about buying it or whatever they've done. It was where the equestrian horses was. So he got to get that straight, that it is A1. And then I never heard from him again till this week. He wants to meet Friday.
So, question, Mr. David, what is in the PUD regulations, do they address and can we address infrastructure, roads?
The planning commission, and we've done this, when I say we, the planning commission's done this at least once that I can remember specifically. It can deny approval of a project if the infrastructure, that is road and other, you know, utilities are not available. We've never forced a developer to upgrade existing county or utility district infrastructure, but if they've been denied based on that, then of course they could work with the road superintendent and maybe if it's the case, the utility district to upgrade the facilities to make that project doable. We did that specifically, we did that on Old Stage Road.
David Jones, back in the day.
That's the one that comes to mind.
But that was not a PUD, that was just a
No, it wasn't a PUD, he was just doing a subdivision.
But we deemed
the
it.
planning commission made him widen Old Stage Road.
Well, we said, we denied his
it till he widened.
his subdivision, and then he went in on his own volition
Yeah.
and worked with Charles Tipton to widen the
He had to
road.
buy the right of way all the way up through there from people to widen it.
So, question, David. So, we have an A1 zone. Right, and the density in an A1 zone is basically about 40,000 square feet. Is that not correct?
Yeah, per residence.
Per residence, okay. But the question is that, does it dictate, can you have multi-family units in an A1 in a PUD?
Generally not like apartments or condominiums and that sort of thing. We've not seen that in Jefferson County.
Okay, so.
But, you know,
Is it,
if this,
so what, I guess that's my question is that when this PUD comes in, okay, as far as that goes, the density is still gonna be based upon 40,000 square feet
I would think, yeah.
per lot, okay? Or if they, lot averaging,
Average, yeah.
okay, whatever, all right. So basically, I guess my question is that, but they're still limited in the type of single family, they can't have multifamily. Because it's A1. There's no multifamily allowed in an A1 zone, is that correct? In other
Well-
words, you can't even have a duplex.
No, you could do
In an
that,
A1?
but it would have to meet the density
Okay.
requirements, but, you
So-
know, if this was a
You can
treatment
have
facility,
triplex, just a duplex.
and
Just a
it
duplex.
depends how this is defined, I mean, I know we're talking about a PUD in this case, but depending on how this is defined, I mean, there are medical situations where people in, you know, that are in alcohol rehab or drug rehab, which is, you know, where it might be a residential facility, it might not necessarily fall under residential, it might be more of a medical thing, and this, we've not had a proposal on this, and as I sit here, I don't know how exactly we would treat what we're discussing.
Well, until we know, until what.
I know, but what I'm doing is I'm looking at some basic stuff. So I know we're gonna do a PUD in an A1, and I don't ever know that, I'm trying to remember if we've ever had a PUD in an A1 zone. So I don't have any guidelines basically to tell me what direction that I need to go in, so I have to go with what's in there. And I said, okay, I know that I'm gonna have to have at least 35 to 40,000 square foot for each housing unit
In a residential PUD.
in a residential PUD, okay? So, you know, yeah, my lots, they may be something like this, as far as that goes, but still yet, because my density is at 40,000, so it limits, based on the acreage there, I know that there's a maximum number of housing units that can actually go on this property, all right? The question is when you do a PUD, you don't have to have a lot that where the house sits. The houses could be closer together as far as that goes, in that, but they can't be attached. The houses could be closer together, but you're still only allowed whatever the density amount is based on the acreage.
So it could be offset by open space and that sort of thing.
Well, yes, you would have, because that's what you would end up having is open space. So what it does is that
The
it takes that
PUD
piece
the
of
PUD
property.
would allow some flexibility in the development of
That's
the
correct.
project.
That's the value of a PUD. They're going to be, let's say for instance, they decided they want to have a clubhouse or a barn or whatever. A PUD's going to allow them to get more homes real close and tight around that, but they're still only going to be allowed the same amount no matter, I mean, even if they didn't do that. In other words, if they divided it up in 40 lots, basically then they could get 40 homes. Well, in a PUD, they don't have to be on a 40,000 square foot lot, but that's still the max amount that would be required there. So they just have a footprint,
So
basically.
the density would not increase for the same,
No, it's still same, it
same
was
piece of property.
same piece of property. So if they made a subdivision out of that and they subdivided it in 40 lots, as far as that goes, in an A1 zone, then you can have 40 houses, all right? But in a subdivision, you have a set boundary for your lot and everything else that's gonna actually be 40,000 square feet. But in a PUD, you get to move those homes closer together. It's just that the density itself has to stay the same.
Yeah, I think in a PUD, and correct me if I'm, 0 lot lines, right?
Well,
Is that right, Dave? We ain't done one forever.
but see, that's,
What about the road
Well,
issue?
yeah, that's,
I mean, if,
the road is gonna be the same whether it's a subdivision or if it's a
what I'm
PUD.
saying is that if you're doing that in a development, then you've got, it's just like a subdivision, you've got internal roads.
Yes.
Are they the same standards in a
Yes.
PUD?
Yes,
You got to have 24 foot wide,
yes.
all other stuff we've got in the subdivision, they're not exempted of any of that.
no.
Well, the planning commission can have some flexibility there in reducing that if, that's what it says in the regulations.
Well,
Could you use the same standards as a subdivision?
well, as far as your roads and everything else like that, and utility, yes, you can. So you can make them maintain those standards, which I would feel more comfortable with because of, just due to the fact that my advocacy on roads is I think they need to be wide enough for emergency vehicles to get in and out of.
No question.
So
We
I,
just went through that deal with the road,
Yeah.
for all subdivisions.
yeah, and I don't want to regress. I don't care if it is a PUD as far as it goes. I don't want to regress from that as well. And if you remember, we just also adopted that we're adding in a walking path sideway in on our road standards as well.
So following your logic, then, you can't build a dormitory, you can't build a connected apartment building 3 stories high and all of that, is that what,
That's because
is that right?
Because A1 does not allow for
Family.
multifamily housing. And that, to me, that's what that would be. Now, if they came in and they said, we would like to get this rezoned to an RR, then an RR allows a condominium style design, I think, as far as that goes, which would allow them to do that, okay?
I did give him that option.
Well,
I mean, that's an option
well,
can do.
I don't know what they're gonna take, but what I'm looking at is that I'm looking at this as an A1 property, and you can, and in that, it says it's single family, and which tells me then that I can't have attached housing. It's gotta be detached housing. And, if he wants to go with the planned unit development, then what that tells me is that he's not wanting to go to a subdivision. And here's the thing, there's a lot of times when you go to a subdivision, you may want to do that just because you're gonna sell the lot and the house together. Here, they may build these, and they may have no intentions of selling them. They may be just going to lease them or whatever they're going to do. But the PUD, but going with a PUD, basically what you have is that you have the footprint that basically the house sits on, and then everything else is common area around them. Is that not correct?
Yeah, so you want me to read what it says about PUDs, or do you want to,
Well, does anybody?
you want to hear this, or is it getting too cumbersome? On page 23, section 7.4, planned unit development regulations. The purpose of the planned unit development regulations is to provide for diversification in the relationship of uses and structures to their sites, and also provide flexibility which will create a more desirable living environment. A PUD shall mean an integrated, professionally prepared design for development of residential, commercial, or industrial uses, or as permitted combinations of such uses to allow application of new techniques and technology of site and building design and location. This for the purpose of achieving economies in land usage and maintenance and street and utility systems while providing for attractive open areas, safe circulation, and general well-being of the inhabitants. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
I'd hate to try to repeat that without reading it. But anyway, let me read the next section real quick. Applicability of PUD regulations. A PUD may be developed in any district provided that the uses permitted and density requirements of the district allow for the development, and the PUD plan elements are approved by the Planning Commission. Residential, commercial, public, semi-public, or industrial uses, or combinations of these uses where district or special regulations permit, may be developed under the planned unit development concept. Cluster-type subdivisions and condominiums, townhouses, multi-dwelling units, rental developments, multi-use parks, travel trailer parks, and multi-use or ownership developments shall be considered as PUDs for the purpose of this resolution. Relationships.
Let me ask you a question on that one. The only way those are considered is it has to be in the zone that allows it.
Allowed in that
correct,
zone,
yes.
yes.
So A1 is
Yeah.
clear about no multifamily.
Right.
So you'd have to go to
Still
RR.
do a duplex.
Well, you can. Well, I just asked you that.
Yeah, I told you, you can. You
So they can do a duplex.
in A1
Okay.
on one track.
Okay, relationship of PUD regulations to district and site plan regulations. Unless specifically altered by any provision of this section, the use and development regulations of Article 8 or any other applicable provision of this ordinance shall apply to the development of a planned unit development.
Okay.
So, Section 8 is the
But I
is the
still,
zoning district.
I still think even if you do a duplex,
each unit is considered one housing unit.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
The only thing it's gonna have is it's gonna have a common wall between it, is what it would have. So they could have,
You have 80,000 square feet for that duplex,
No, 40.
or 40.
well,
In the A1 district,
no, is that right?
yeah.
45.
Yeah.
So it's
We've got
not,
several
it's
in the
not
county.
considered a separate unit then?
It's not, and
Which duplexes are allowed in A1, they always have been.
okay, but I'm getting that part. What I'm trying to figure out is that, is it one duplex, 2 units per every 40,000 square feet? Or is it one unit of the duplex is 40,000 and the other one takes another 40,000?
Well, you can have one duplex on 40 and then
Well, here would be the thing. If he came in and he subdivided this out in lots and he put a duplex on it, then basically it would just require 40,000 square feet because that's a lot.
Right. We could actually do averaging.
Well,
I don't know how many acres down there, I can't.
because somewhere along the line, we've got to determine what the density is gonna be.
26.4.
Yeah.
We gotta determine what the density's gonna be. All right, so if he comes in and he says, okay, this is what I got, and this is how much acres we got, we're gonna sit there, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna look, all right, you got 40,000 square feet, this many acres, this is how many house sites you're gonna get.
26.
26.
Yeah, what it looks like.
Acre, so it's,
26.44, 40,000.
Okay, so now then, but here's the thing, if he does duplexes, is that double? To 52 units.
well, I don't know, we've never,
That's my question. There's when I'm looking at this, I'm you know, because what's going to happen is they're going when they come to us, these are the very questions that's going to be before us, and I'd rather have the answers right now and instead of there when we're thinking about it, because I'm not sure under the guidelines here the duplexes is throwing a wrench into to my thinking.
So if he does the planned use development, they don't have to have so many, he could take 13 acres and basically put all of them on one side.
He could, if he does a PUD, yeah.
Can he come back and ask for a railroad trade after he does the PUD and do the other side?
well, that's a rezoning, be up to you all.
It would be a
County.
I don't think he can, because if you've got, let's say you've got 10 acres, and he puts them all on 5 acres, he can only have the amount of residents that 40,000 square feet divides out of 10
Yeah,
acres.
yeah, that's it,
So there's
yeah.
no way
That's gonna
you
work.
could rezone the other.
I think if he was gonna ask for rural resort, he'll ask for it all.
You gotta remember the septic gonna dictate that in bit.
Right.
You know.
Well, I know, but I'm looking at the scenario when it comes in here, because what we got to determination is that when this development comes in, what are we looking at in terms of when we go, say, to the road superintendent said, I got a development here and it looks like I'm gonna have 50 units. And this is how many cars it's maybe possible every day. What's your opinion on that? And so that would be my question, one of the questions I would have. Because that's one of the questions that we would need to know going forward. Am I wrong or right?
I think you're right, and the other thing is we need to know is how far does it extend out? I mean, that, as Tim said, that road going off in there is narrow.
What line of road took over off of Nancy Ferry?
It comes off and that's very, yeah.
And the upper part of that thing is a lot wider than the lower part.
It goes like this.
It narrows down going off that hill,
Yeah.
and we're just shooting in the dark.
I know.
Anyway,
But-
but I guess what I'm asking are we sure where our regulations are, or what we have? Do we need to review some of this stuff? I mean, because if we don't have this thing down, we need to figure out what we're doing.
Well,
Wouldn't a duplex be multi-family?
duplex is multifamily. Yeah. I mean, it's not considered to be detached housing because you have a 0 lot line. That's
Okay.
what you have basically. And it really depends on too, because at some point in time, it becomes this. When you have a unit that's a duplex, and if you're going to market that, then it becomes like a townhouse. And what happens is that depending upon if it's a duplex that you rent, or if it becomes a townhouse, as to how that thing is actually built. There's a difference between the two.
Yeah.
Because in one, you're anticipating that you're going to sell the units, and the other you're going to rent. And the wall that separates those two, between a townhouse and a duplex, the fire codes are different when those are built. Yeah. Townhouses are a little bit more, if you intend to sell them, as far as that goes in the future. Now, that being said, is that ever called? I don't know. Usually you catch it when they're being built, but all I'm saying is that if his intention is that they're just going to rent the homes and they're going to have a common wall, they need to be built one way. If his intention is to sell the units, every time to sell the units, they need to be built to townhouse standards up front.
Then that begs the question, if you're selling the units, would that not be a separate residence for each one?
It would be.
Even if they have a common wall?
Yes, I mean, that's that.
Well, I mean, if you, a duplex you're talking about?
Well, let me ask you a question, because I look at the definition of a townhouse and a duplex, it's a different thing, and I'm looking at it from a building standpoint because I know there is a difference between the two, okay?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so, but we don't mention townhouses here, and we only mention duplexes, which tells me then that basically I'm looking at a duplex as a rental, and it could be built that way. You know, I know a lot of duplexes that are built where somebody owns the whole thing, lives on one side and rents the other side. So it could still end up being a rental and an ownership at that point in time. Until they tell us what direction they're gonna go, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think they
On
intend
that.
to sell.
Townhouse has an upstairs, right?
It doesn't have to have an upstairs.
It doesn't have to have?
No, it does not, no.
I think they just do housing, don't they? Ain't that what Carm does? House? I don't know exactly what they do, but.
Well, I think if they're looking for direction, then they're gonna have to make the determination, if they're gonna do this PUD, as to the type of housing units that they're gonna put on this, and then that's gonna dictate the density.
Yeah, I agree.
Looks like there's two tracks there, it's like 140 acres,
Good gracious.
117 and 26.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of acres down there. Best I remember.
Yeah. There's no way they could handle 200 lots in there. That much acreage.
Well, it looks like it's two different tracks, so. That's how River Glen.
You don't know how much that they're gonna develop, how much is actually gonna be developed out of it.
The rig, the
Okay.
road.
So is everybody confused?
That's
Yep.
Fort Glen, yeah.
All right.
That's a map.
Well, all I'm trying to do is lay some groundwork for when this comes in, to hopefully that we have the answers that we need to make this determination. And it seems to me that what we're looking at is that depending on the scope of this development, that there may be things that they may have to do to make this functional and safe.
And I told you.
I know, but, but the question is how much? I think that's part of the question. It's like John Neal said, how far do you have to go to make a road safe?
And I don't know,
I don't
I'm just
either.
asking
I'm
the
just
question, is saying, if you say that London Road, does that include Nancy's Ferry? I mean, Nancy's Ferry is not gonna handle 200 or 300 vehicles every day. It's just not, it's not there. And then if you come out Nancy's Ferry, if you're going to Knoxville, you probably take Lost Creek, or you take Baker Road. If you're coming to Jefferson City, you're headed up, coming back into Newmarket. None of those roads right there are gonna be handling 200 or 300 cars. If that's what, and I don't know,
I don't
and
either.
we're totally shooting in the dark.
Yeah, I don't.
But all I'm saying is, how far does our authority to have a developer, not specifically to this site, but just in general, how far is it that our authority extends to make a developer make the infrastructure to a safe and reasonable level?
I don't think we can make them. I think we can turn a project down if it's not sufficient in road width or condition or for utilities.
If you'll remember, I don't know if any of you was even on there, Mine Road, my old farm. Jeff Pratt tried to rezone that to R1, and Phil Comer was on this planning commission, and those bridges on Mine Road you can't pass them, never could. And he went out and measured them himself, and they turned the rezoning and the subdivision down because of that. That's the one I remember, because of course I used to farm that, but that's one I do remember.
Okay. Anything else you want to address on this? All right. We'll move on, but we need to get some, I think we got some things we need, but we really just need to hear from them and see what they're gonna do.
So I guess one more question was that, have we got the right regulations? Are we clear on them? Do we know where we are on our regulations? Is there anything in there that's vague and not clear that we're gonna need as things like this come into the county?
In other words,
and this is one of the things we're starting, and it kind of leads into the next thing, is a land use plan, rezoning and all that. Do we have things that we need to review here, since this issue we don't know what you're doing, but not specifically this site, but on any site in the county, if these things are coming in, if you're going out in a rural area, are we equipped to handle it?
I think so. Planning Commission needs to review each project on its own merits. And, well, when we review the zoning, we need to, ask all these questions as we go through it, the zoning resolution. And, when we look at, where we want the different zones in the county to be.
And is this type of development what you want in a rural area? I mean, we couldn't even, or so far we can't even get a meat processing plant on a 4-lane road. I mean,
well,
I don't go to schools.
I don't know. I mean, I go back through the years, and we probably ain't developed land in this county that should never have been developed, but there was a desire for it because sometimes the location, people said, I don't care what the road's like, and I don't care if I got water or anything else. This is where I want to live, and you sell me a lot, and I'll come here and I'll build my house and I'll live there. Now, was that the best thing overall for the county and everything else? Maybe not. But the thing was that some guy wanted it, another guy wanted to sell it. And so, we got a road, and eventually you get electricity, and that's sort of how we progressed. Was there any planning to it? No, there probably wasn't any planning at all. It was just supply and demand, and that's how it ended up. But then, there are desirable pieces of property because of the topography and the amenities that are around as far as that goes, that could be developed if the right things are done. So, I don't know. All I know on this one is that I feel comfortable that we have the authority in this instance here to say yay or nay on this, on a particular development if we don't feel like it meets the guidelines. And I'm going to give you the case in point. And I feel like this authority, and the way I look at it, to me, backed up our authority, is that when we came in and we did Lake Haven. And the reason I say that is that if you look at Lake Haven and where it was located, as far as that goes, that would be not something that basically we would have said, this is a good development. And actually what happened was, in the history you look at it, the planning commission said, no, it's not a good development. But they went to county commission, and county commission said, no, we think this is a good development, all right, as far as it goes, but we're gonna put these conditions on it. And so we came back now, and we had this development and all that, and the conditions that were in place and so forth. But there again, so I said, okay, we felt like there were deficiencies there to develop this property. But county commission said these deficiencies can be overcome by you making these improvements. And so I feel like that our authority then could say, okay, county commission has said it's okay to do these developments, but you're gonna have to do A, B, C, and D before you're gonna be approved to do it. And so I feel like if they can say that, I think this planning commission can say the very same thing for any development that comes in here.
So if we're doing that and we've not had, to the best of my knowledge, we've not had facilities like you're talking about, medical or rehab or whatever that's in the county that I can think of. So does that mean that we can put conditions on that like we put on the battery storage?
Are you talking about in resolution form or just as a condition for approving their site
Yeah,
plan?
I mean, we basically have put that in there as far as battery storage. In there, we put that whole list of conditions that they've got to agree
And
to.
hopefully it'll be adopted.
And hopefully it will be adopted. But my question is, can we put the same, not the same conditions, but conditions on, let's say, I mean, you're talking about that being far removed, if it's a treatment facility or whatever, it's far removed from emergency services out there in the bend of the river. Do we, and I have no idea what you're doing. I want to state that right up front. We're shooting in the dark on this, but can you say something like, if this is an undue burden based on the number of calls? The gentleman over there talked about emergency services, the calls they run. I mean, can you say, okay, you've got to, if based on this and with the increased call volume and all this, you've got to cover, just like site-specific equipment for the battery thing, you've got to cover some cost here. It'd be an undue burden on the county residents if they start making 4 trips a week out there to the bend of the river with an ambulance.
That's a good question. I don't really know. The reason I say I don't know is because usually all that's supposed to be written into the zoning regulations, and if they meet the zoning regulations, it really needs to be approved. But under certain conditions, I think, where you have something that might be, I'm trying to think of the right word, let's say a use permitted on review or special exception, then you can put conditions with it. And certain things probably ought to be listed in the zoning resolution as such as those, so they can be addressed that way.
Okay, but we don't have a definition in here in regards, or do we, for treatment or recovery, do we have definitions in here that in regards to those particular type of items?
I don't recall offhand.
Okay.
Chairman, let me see.
So if we don't, does that have to go for Board of Zoning Appeals?
It would need to be, we would need to list a definition of what that encompasses. And here's the thing, and if we did that, then we could also, if we come up with something like that, I know that there's a fine line here. There becomes a fine line when we become discriminatory against these certain things. And I know there's state laws out there saying, you know what, you gotta treat them just like anything else. But there's a difference, there can be a difference there depending, until we see the scope of what they're wanting to do, we gotta make a determination, is it just housing, or is it more than that?
Yeah,
And
and
we've got
that's
some
why,
of that identified there.
So, public,
different types of medical facilities, and then you've got,
pain management clinics, which I don't think that's what it's gonna be.
no, but if we have
But-
that identified.
But the thing is that we
Defined.
probably have a specific zone where a pain management clinic is located, and it's probably not in an A1 zone.
No, it isn't.
Okay, and a hospital is, I'm not sure, that a dental clinic or medical clinic, that probably would be, because we had some medical clinics that are in rural areas.
Rescue squad.
So,
Convalescent or nursing home,
yeah, I see,
yeah.
some of that's just
But
gonna,
like I say,
some of it's gonna require a legal
Can we find
opinion.
that out if we know this is if they're coming, according to what Tim says?
I think we would just need a legal opinion on that, would we not?
I would think so.
We need to find that out because, you know, with, like I say, I mean, I don't know how many trips that EMS makes out there on the average right now, but if you increase that tenfold, or if you increase the visits from the sheriff's department, you've got, you know, you're keeping one deputy full-time, busy back and forth, or in an ambulance or whatever, then that's a pretty good burden. I
That's
mean,
a burden, yes, sir.
I mean, you've got to have what is it, 6 people per ambulance as a crew, and you've got, because you've got to have the full shifts and all this other, plus the ambulance, you've got to have, so I mean, there's some things I think we need to think about before they get here. And I'll agree with Mr. Terry, we need to try to have as many answers as we can based on that instead of searching.
Well, they may be here next month, I don't know. I'll know more when I meet with them.
Jefferson County have a constable?
One in every district except Dandridge, and there's 2 in Dandridge.
I didn't know.
In fact, the one in the 7th district is I think if he's not the longest serving, one of the longest serving ones in the state of Tennessee.
I know, and that's what I'm saying, it depends on, I guess it's, in the language, it depends on what you're gonna call it.
I have no clue of what Carmen's proposing.
Well, I don't either, and I mean, like I say, we're shooting in the dark completely,
Right.
Well,
but
so what if they're proposing something? And they're gonna come and ask us if we wanna do this, the very first thing that we're gonna have to determine is what zone it can go in,
What
correct?
is it, what zone would be permitted in?
Okay, so that brought me back to this question because I've been thinking about this. All right. So let's say, for instance, they're looking to purchase this property, and they're going to purchase it, and then let's say, for instance, as a religious institution, as far as that goes, and they say we're going to have a church, and part of our church and part of our services is to cater to the homeless, the addicted, and everything else. And if I'm not mistaken, the state law says that can be part of your repertoire as being a church, that you can provide those services. And then they come in and says, okay, we're going to provide these services, and we have this piece of property, we're going to put it here, and basically what boils down to is we're going to let these people come and stay with us. All right. And if state law says that's fine, that's fine. But my question is that in order for them to do that, they may supersede our zoning and saying that it can go there under that pretense, all right? But I still think they're still subject to the obligation of bringing everything up just like any other development would be, because you can't sacrifice safety just because of, you want to do something that may not be allowed in a specific zone. That's my reasoning, and that's the question I have. I want to know at that point in time, if for some reason, if state law says, you know what, they get to go there, they get to do this because of this designation, and I'm going to say, all right, I can't supersede state law. But my question is, they still should have to follow the guidelines as far as our infrastructure and everything else is that's in place. Am I wrong in that? I mean,
I think you're right, and I guess the question then becomes, for you to find out, Mr. David, is, and you too, as far as legal, how far does our authority go? Can we turn down the site plan if state law says that it's allowed and it supersedes our zone? Can we still turn it down? Safety, infrastructure issues, what conditions can we put on this in special uses? You know, I still think if we have the authority to put the conditions on the battery plant, and nobody thought about a battery plant or a battery site 5 years ago. Or a year ago.
Or 6 months ago.
6 months ago, really. But if we can do that, do we have the same authority, irregardless whether it's under state law or not?
I can't answer that. I would think so, because I think health, safety, and welfare, you know, with the adopted building codes in the state, I think just because, let's say, a group home is allowed in any location that a normal house is allowed, I believe that's state law, doesn't mean that they don't have to go by the building codes. Am I right on that?
I would think so, because why would you sacrifice safety?
Right. I mean, it's about safety. It's not about anything but safety.
Okay.
If they use the religious part of the church, do they get any?
Well, I'm just saying that could be something that's there. You know, you come under that premise as far as that goes, then you get certain rights from the state of Tennessee in some of the things that you can and cannot do.
And I think even in our zoning thing, churches are allowed
They are.
in every zone. Is that right?
Probably not in the industrial, but.
I think it's allowed in industrial.
Any zone.
I think it's in any zone that you can have a church in any zone in our regulations.
So.
Which makes sense. I mean, it's
I
not
know. So I guess that's my thing is if, you know, I don't know this group. I don't know anything as how they operate, what's their, but I'm just trying to make sure that when they do come, as far as that goes, and we tell them something, as far as that goes, that our authority stands up and to that extent. In other words, we might have to defend it in court, and if we do, then I want to make sure that what I'm defending and what I've told them is that we have authority to tell.
Well, I think it's our obligation as a planning commission, if Tim's been contacted and they have said, hey, we'd like to come talk to you about this, and if they come talk to him and want to get on next month, if we know the project's coming, it doesn't matter whether it's a Ford plant or a cheese plant. It's our obligation. We need to get as many answers as we can to have them whenever, whatever industry, developer, whatever comes, we need to be able to answer as many questions as we can. That's not specific to this.
Okay. All right.
Agree.
All right. Any other questions in regards to this?
So is Tim gonna find out legal?
I think so. I think we could run this by Jeremy.
Yeah, or we can have them at,
I just want him
whenever they get on, we
I-
can
I
have
just-
lawyers here.
I just want him to tell me what the Tennessee Code of Annotated states about specific types of things that this may fall under, and what the state says that they're allowed to do, and then.
Well, I don't know what to even ask them, so what I know, maybe after Friday.
Okay, maybe after Friday.
Yeah, then I'll see what they're,
All right.
then I'll know what.
Okay. All right.
And then, Mr. David, you're gonna find out on some of those other questions about the stuff as far as the state plan and the state statute, stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Let's go on. Let's look at some of the things that we've discussed that we know that in the past that we've come across as some of the things that we have dilemmas as far as it goes. And to be truthful, it's things that basically we've had courtrooms full of people that have been upset about. And 9 times out of 10, it boils down to one thing, and it's the way the county is zoned. All right? So, if you remember, I went before county commission and asked them point blank, I said, look, if this is not working, then I think that the best thing to do is that we can look at rezoning the county. Does that mean every single parcel is going to change into a different zone? Maybe, maybe not, as far as it goes. I don't think that's going to happen. But the thing is this, and the way I'm looking at it is that, and here was, to me, was a way to get a good starting point. If you look at, and you go to the state of Tennessee, and you can go to the Jefferson County site, there is a land use map. And what that map gives you is from the tax assessor's office that tells you what every parcel is being used for. It's not what is zoned, it's what it's being used for. So if you have industrial land that's sitting out in the middle of nowhere, let's say for like Bush Brothers, it's going to show that there's industrial land there. And it's also going to show that there's agricultural land right beside it. If you go down any road, highway or whatever, and there's commercial property there and it's being used for commercial, it's going to show up as commercial. Even though we may have it zoned as A1, R1, or whatever. But the county is looking at it saying, you know what, there's commercial business there and people use that for commercial. All right? So which tells me that at some point in time, why was that not, if it's being used, why is it not commercial? Why would it not be commercial? Why would we not change that to commercial in the zone? Because it's being used that way. All right? Which tells me then that somewhere along the line there's going to be a pattern that's going to show up where people are saying, when we see a lot of commercial property or industrial property, people are saying, you know what, somewhere there's a trend there and people are wanting, it works. This is what people are looking for. So I think if we look at that as a starting point, and we pull that up, and it's got it for every single parcel in the whole county, as far as it goes, but it's going to show us there, and it's going to show us this. It's going to show us some that's going to be considered agriculture. And then right beside of it, it's going to show some that's residential. Now that residential may be zoned R1, maybe. It depends. So if it was a subdivision out there years ago that got rezoned, then there's some R1 outside the growth boundary or whatever. But that's my next question as well. Is that in the land use plan, is it mandatory that the growth boundary play a role in the way that we look at zoning and rezoning properties? Can that be taken out?
The state law says that once the growth plan is adopted, that all land use decisions shall be made in accordance with the.
That's state law.
Yeah, it's written right into state law. I don't know if anybody does it. I know we do it, but I don't know if any other planning commissions and, legislative bodies follow it, or how closely they follow it or don't follow it. I have no clue.
Okay.
But I know in Jefferson County, we've made a lot of decisions, especially on 139 and different areas in accordance with that plan.
Okay.
So having said that,
So what you're saying is that we can continue to have a growth boundary, okay? But then we can
the
make.
state legislature's getting ready to change that, and I don't know how they're going to change it.
Yeah, well, they're going to do away with it if it's voted in. There won't be any more growth boundaries. And there won't be any land use plan, and there won't be, cities will be able to annex wherever they want to, as long as the people say they want to be annexed. If that passes, who knows? All right, so here's the thing. So the state says we have to take in consideration, because it is state law, that there is a growth boundary. All right? But then it lets us make the rules up as to what goes in the growth boundary and what goes out of the growth boundary, right? So there's nothing that says in there, we get to make those rules, correct? So
the state gives the county and cities all kinds of authority when it comes to zoning property, and that's really what we're talking about.
All right. So let's say, for instance, we have a growth boundary and we decide, you know what? out here, outside this growth boundary, we have property that's been zoned R1. And in that it's basically, it's at a density that we have established in our zoning for an R1 zone, okay? All right, so it's residential, and it has a lower density.
Higher density.
A higher density, okay, I'm sorry, higher density. All right, that's there. But then the next tract that's beside of it here, which is also outside the growth boundary, is, per our guidelines, cannot have that, because of the guidelines we have, it cannot be rezoned to a higher density. Or it's not supposed to be rezoned to a higher density, am I correct?
Not supposed to is probably the better way to put it.
Okay, so that's my question. That's my rub right there. And we do that. I understand we're doing it because we're saying that we're considering this a rural area. But some of these rural areas are just basically right up against the growth boundary. They are, and so what happens is that, so we're not zoning this R1, so our fallback zone on this property is going to be A1. And if you look at our A1 zone, I mean, it's just like going down the buffet line, because there's all kinds of stuff that's in there as far as that goes that can come and go. And so the issue that we've had is that when this A1 abuts up to the R1, as far as that goes, and people want to rezone that, we get pushed back because we're saying, we don't need any more housing, and we don't need this. But then again, they don't like what's in the A1 of what the alternative could be. And so that's what we've got. So there's either one thing. We change more stuff to residential out of the A1 in the county, as far as that goes. All right? And I don't care if we say this is R1 outside growth boundary or whatever, and we just put a density on that, but what we're saying is that this is single-family housing.
What you're saying is that the fact that the A1 district, which requires larger lots, offers let's say, a lot of different types of uses that could adversely affect or not allow for normal residential development that you might find in a lot of places, right?
Well, what we're finding is that basically what's happening is that we're getting areas that have been developed into residential. And now they're feeling as if there's going to be encroachment on them, because there's things that's the A1 beside of them, as far as that goes, and those items in that A1 are not what those people want, okay? So now there has to be a fine line there.
Like a junkyard.
Well, it could be. Something,
Why's a junkyard in A1?
Well, it may have been that way because that's when zoning came in, it could have been established that way. What should have happened is at that point in time, it should have been probably maybe rezoned, or it's this, Chair. You may have decided, you know what, one day that junkyard will go out of business, and then it will revert back to something where a junkyard couldn't be, and they can't have it anymore. So that sometimes that thinking's in there as well. You can have that non-conforming use where it's in there, may not be allowed, it could be a non-conforming use, and what you're waiting on is for that to run its course, and then basically to that point in time, then it would go back, and you could, if it's out of business, then it may not be able to come back into business as a junkyard.
Well, if that next lot is rated R.
It can't be a junkyard, then, yeah, that one can't have a junkyard.
Why? It's A1. I mean, nobody's gonna build right next to the junkyard in residential.
Right.
You'd be surprised.
Well,
I'd like to see junkyards moved out of A1.
I don't think we allow them in A1.
We don't.
The reason you're seeing them there now is because they were there when zoning first came in.
Yeah.
All right, so they were there, and they just went ahead and zoned them A1, even though they probably shouldn't have been. But they probably should have been in like an I1 zone or something like that. All right, but there's times when you think about this, what's worse? The fact that you have an I1 and what is allowed in there for industry, or you allow a non-conforming use such as a junkyard in hopes that someday that it will go away. And then, once it goes away, then, let's say it's zone day one, it can never come back in there. And that's how sometimes you have to look at zoning. You have to take sometimes your poison to a certain extent, and that happens. And that's what's the way this county has evolved.
Looking at existing land use is a good way to start the process, but zoning is supposed to be used to guide the growth of the county and cities.
And that's where I'm getting to.
Yeah.
I want to find out what the trends are, okay? And I feel like that's going to tell me what the trends are as far as that goes. And then from there, then I want to try to plan based on the trends that I'm seeing out here right now. And a lot of people on this board probably know what those trends are to a certain extent. What I'm saying is that there's examples here of zoning that people don't like. There are things in this zoning that they don't like. And sometimes we're not receptive to do ideas or things of that nature for that very reason. But I'm saying is that the majority of the people that have a house and they're in a residential development and they made this investment there, they come in here and they are very, very passionate, as you all can tell, about protecting their rights. And I've looked at that and I thought about it many times, and here was my thing was, I said, okay, you know what? At one point in time, there was a guy here, and he had his land, and he was a little farmer and everything else, and then all of a sudden, everybody comes all around him then, and they put in residential units. And then, so, as far as that goes. So, he's probably sitting there thinking, you know what? I don't want that there. But nobody thought about me, and they let them put them in there. And so now then, if I decide to do something else, then everybody's against me. Because even though I was there first, as far as that goes, and my right, I had my rights, this residential group has surrounded me, and they're saying, oh, we don't want you to do that. We don't want you to be able to do that. And so those individuals have rights as well. But I'm just saying, if we start looking at the A1 and we start taking things out, we're going to trample on some rights for some people when we take some of those things out.
Perhaps a farmer's retirement plan, right?
It very well could be. So it's a very fine line when we do that. But but I understand. We're trying to protect two people. We're trying to protect the people that, in this case, is the residential that's been developed, that's there as far as that goes. But then we also got to protect the guy's rights there beside of that has his land there. That it says, you know what, I'm zone day one, and it says that I can do this, and which case, and he comes in here, and we have no choice, but we get a pushback from that. So that's my dilemma. I can understand. I don't care to take some things out of A1, but I don't want to trample on some people's rights in when I do that. And so my biggest thing is that was this, and I thought about it. What if it's just all zoned residential?
Say that again.
What if it's just all zoned residential?
No junkyards?
I'm just saying, in certain areas, if it's just on residential. I'm talking about out in the rural areas. So you
You're talking about R1?
Yep. So you wouldn't if it was on residential. The only thing you'd have in there is single family housing. Is that right? In churches?
Well, then
Okay. Now
you're gonna take a lot of stuff out of that A1 if you do it that way. Like little convenience stores,
I understand
stuff
that,
like that.
but then I'm going to put them back in a different way
Yeah.
to where it makes more sense.
And then you're looking at high factor tracts for the whole county?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying
That's what it would be in R1,
well, unless we changed it,
unless you change it, yeah. Which I would be for
which
going up.
which was what you talked about last time, that you
But
want
I've
to see.
got another way you can get rid of junkyards.
But what you were telling, when you brought this up
Yeah, we
before, you
had
said,
no junkyard.
why don't we just make all the residential lots bigger? Okay?
Exactly.
And so my thing is if you go out and you say, okay, let's just own everything in the county, that, basically, if we go back and look, that's maybe not commercial already, and we just rezone it to residential.
And you don't see any disaster looming on the horizon doing that?
Well,
I do.
what?
I mean, like I say, we can't.
Explain, because here's my thing, whether it's A1 or R1, if we're looking at it for people building too many houses and development, is that what you're thinking? They can build them in A1 already if they want to.
No,
But
we've
not
got,
half-acre tracts.
Well,
you
gotta change
go
the
down, you
Why
go
not
down
just-
the 4-lane over where we're at.
yeah,
You leave Jefferson City and you head to Knoxville,
right.
down the 4-lane, and you zone every bit of that residential.
I'm not gonna do that. I'm saying in the rural areas. I'm saying when I get to my state highways and everything else, that's when I want my overlays in
For commercial.
for commercial.
Snyder Road down there is a rural area, it's gonna, when they get 408 done, it's gonna change a lot down there.
Well, I'm just saying
How
that,
far off of the, let's say Lead Mead, how far off the Lead Mead you go with commercial?
I don't know yet. I mean,
I mean,
I'm
you
gonna-
look at, okay, let's take Nance Road down there,
Right.
because there's a line of delineation. Right there's a railroad track.
Right.
Is that rural on the north side of the railroad track? Or are you talking about zoning that R1?
Well, on the north side,
On the north side of the railroad track.
I would think that could be R1.
So you're saying that once you cross the railroad track, you're rural. The only
I'm-
commercial,
I'm not calling anything rural anymore, basically. I mean, because, can you give me a definition of rural in this Jefferson County?
Yeah, Rocky Valley.
Okay, you see what I'm saying? Because we've got so much residential that has gone and spread out in this areas already. I don't, I don't know that I see it as rural. Only thing I see right now, that's just me. Here's the other thing I thought about too. I thought about this for agriculture. And this one was way out there on a limb. But I looked at this. So you've got agriculture land and you put your property on Greenbelt and you've told the county, I'm a farmer at that point in time. All right. So if we come in and we made a designation that says everybody that's on Greenbelt says that they want to be agricultural. And so they could have an agricultural zone. But anybody that's not in that as far as it goes, to me, could be residential. And I don't know if there's issues with that or not.
Terry, going back to the 1101, the county growth plan stuff, the whole purpose of that was for the county to identify rural areas that were to remain rural, agricultural, forestry, that sort of use. And that would be everything that wasn't in a planned growth area, like a potential new incorporation. And in Jefferson County, those have been identified basically as the interchanges in some area in Strawberry Plains. And then for the urban growth boundary to surround the cities, where the cities are anticipated to grow, and this was over a period of 20 years, starting back in the year 2000 when the plans were supposed to be prepared. Well, anyway, it's all designed theoretically to provide for an efficient development of each county in Tennessee, where the utility districts knew where to put utilities, urban growth boundaries, or planned growth areas where growth was going to occur, and to concentrate them there rather than in rural areas. So anyway, I think the whole idea was to guide growth and to keep a lot of the rural areas rural for efficiency in providing roads and utilities and that sort of thing. So anyway, I think we need to make sure we look at the county in the same context as we go forward with revising the zoning resolution and finalizing the land use plan updates.
See, there, David, you and I disagree. Because I look at the 20-year plan that we've had right here, and I looked at back how we've done it. All right, and so those were the guidelines for that land use plan, but I think the guidelines need to change. I think they need to change. And the reason I say that is because I don't feel as if they worked. Because I've read them, and I don't feel like they've worked. Because it was supposed to be, in developing that, it was supposed to be a partnership. It was for the planning commission to say, this is the way that we need to go as far as that goes, but there were also some things in there the county commission was supposed to do to help us to achieve some of these things that we got, but we didn't get that part. And it's, so my thing is that the land use plan to me is something that I look at as the planning commission is going to come up with as far as that goes. County commission may not like that land use plan. They may not, as far as that goes. But if we adopt it based on what we feel like is better rules to follow as far as that goes, do we not have that authority to do so? Because it's not contingent upon county commission adopting it. It's not, the land use plan that is here is, if we adopt it for the planning commission, it says this is the way that we're going to proceed.
And these are our recommendations for the development of the county.
Okay. But we don't have to have the same rules that we had before when we developed that land use plan before. Our priorities can change. And I think they should have. It should be changed at that point in time to where we're at as of right now. And the reason I say that is that, here's the thing. I look at the land use plan, and I'm seeing that people want to do things in this county, but we make it too hard sometimes. So I want a land use plan that says, you know what, I've got this set up to where I'm going to make it easy to do these kind of things. And whether it's, the thing is this, I don't know where they're going to be in 20 years, again, when this thing is all said and done with. All I know is that I think we're at a pivot point big time. And the reason I say that is because we're going to get pressure. There's pressure going to be put on us from both the east and the west, and as far as that goes, on things that are here. And if we don't catch up, we're going to be, I think we're going to be in pretty bad shape. That's just me. I thought about this, and I've been racking my brain on trying to come up with some good ideas. And the first thing I thought was, the thing that scares me the most is because I've looked at the development that's happened in the west side of the county, okay, and and I know why it's happening as far as it goes, because people are speculating that anything that comes down the new exit is just going to inundate us with people looking for a place to live. First thing I thought is that I would go through and look at all that A1 property down there, and I'd put a minimum lot size 5 acres. Now that gives you a good place to live, but what it does do is give you, allow you to have unless it's rezoning, you can't get any lower density. Now, I don't know if that's a good idea or not.
Areas in the
It keeps the rural areas in there.
Rural areas rural.
But I don't know. There's, like I say, I've looked at this, both sides, and tried to make the determination what's going to be the best. But I do know that there's this, and this to me, that thought that I had right there, that's negative zoning. That's negative zoning. Positive zoning is hoping that you progress and that you get the type of developments that you want, and you get the type of commercial that you want, and everything else.
In the right places.
In the right places. But that comes back to the same thing, right places. And I've looked at that through the years and everything else, and I've come to the conclusion that you can't really herd people. You can't. Because look how many rural developments that we've had. Why, especially on the south side of the county, everybody wants to live by the lake. And that's some of the most rural, hardest properties to get to that we have around here, but yet that's where everybody's flocking to. So you could say, we don't want any more lakefront development, but we hadn't stopped it. We've not stopped it. Because that's what people want. So I don't know where we're at on that. But that was, those are the things that I thought of. I don't know what anybody else's ideas are, But my first thing was I said, okay, I can look at what the tax assessor's got as far as zoning, and I can go through there and I can pick out where all the commercial properties are. And the first thing I would think was, that's commercial, let's zone it, let's put it as a commercial zone. That way, why? Because that's what it is. That's what it's being used for. And then the thing was, I said, okay, what do I do about the rural areas that are outside the growth boundary? Because I see that as an issue. And I said, well, what if I just went and said, it's all, a lot of those properties around residential developments, I'm going to say, maybe they need to be R1. And, but I say, they need to be a lower density than there, which, you know, I still say on some of the areas that we go to, it's not going to matter what we do, because there's going to be people, their property owners there, they'll never be happy. They won't. There's going to be some people that says, hey, I've got my little piece that I want right here, and I don't want anything else because it's an inconvenience or a nuisance to me. You know, but then again,
there's a bunch of people in the county felt that way about 30 years ago when all these people moved in.
Well, I'm just saying that's where we get that pushback. We get that feedback all the time. You know, that we
It didn't stop it.
I know, but what the thing was is it says, you know, we're getting too many people. That's what people tell me. But I always ask the question, how much is too many? You know, I don't know. You know, you look at Knox County and they're expecting, what, 79,000 people in their growth as far as that goes. I don't know where we'll end up. Per se. I don't know.
Well, he said, what was it, a year ago or 2 years ago, there's 85 families a day moving in the Davidson County metro area.
Yeah.
85 families, not 85 people, 85 families.
Well, I don't
Now they're
know.
moving from Nashville to Knoxville. what I heard
Exactly.
the other day.
They're trying to get out of Nashville.
Yeah.
Well,
They may not stop there and they come on Jeff County.
You could put junkyards in every,
yeah, but you have to look. Here's the problem that I'm seeing. The people on both sides of us are making things that create jobs, and they need people, and those people need a place to live. And so, if they can't live in the county where their jobs are, then they come somewhere else, and that's where we could end up. And that's the worst thing that could happen to us, in my opinion.
We're already there.
Well,
We're a bedroom community for surrounding counties.
well, if that's the case, then if that's our identity, then what's the big deal about
No,
zoning
I
everything
agree.
R1 out
It's
there?
just we gotta own up to it and say it. We've run so many businesses out of this county in the last 20 years, that ain't even funny.
Well,
And look at the houses we've built. And John Neal's preached it forever. They don't pay for nothing.
well,
And we can't quit, and I'm not talking about you all as much as I am county commissioner. We can't quit stopping that, and we gotta quit stopping people that wanna come business-wise in here.
well, that was one of my things about was the commercial overlays over areas where I thought that could come. And the reason I say that is that was hoping to make it easier so that they didn't have to fight to do that. Now, I know there's reservations about that, and I know some of the things that I've been told, and I don't have a problem upping the guidelines for when they want to do that, whether it's aesthetics, whether it's landscaping, whatever. I don't care to do that. In other words, you can have a nice looking development as far as that goes. So, but anyway. Oh, sorry, David.
That's okay. Almost
Question.
caught it, not quite.
Questions? I mean, I've been doing all the talking. I want to hear what y'all have to say. You tell me you think what your best plan is about going about what we need to accomplish.
I like the overlays where we know it's coming. Those areas we know it's coming.
Okay.
I mean, unless we turn a blind eye to it.
Well,
411 be one. Snyder Road and Falcon Valley and 66 up there.
we know it's coming.
Yeah, there's no question. You got a four-lane highway, it's going to develop. It's just a matter of when, and it may be 20 years. And the other thing is, do you designate those and say they're a commercial, or do you just say this is a business corridor? Rather than trying to pigeonhole them, because we've got, if you say commercial, does that mean they have to stick only by that
Retail or
commercial
something,
the C1 or C2? So is this, and I don't know that that's not protection for everybody, including the residential people. If you know already when you come into this county that these areas are destined to develop as business corridor, you need to make your decision then.
Yeah.
You don't want to live there, that's fine. Don't buy the house. But these areas, you already know that 66 is going to develop. You already know that 11E is going to develop. You already know 139 is going, 2570 is going to develop. 411, all of that. I mean, there's no doubt. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say anything? Just something quick.
Okay.
My land joins River Glen, and, you know, you talk about the infrastructure, and you talk about, you know, the infrastructure is planned to protect the people, you know, and stuff like that. But the type of organization that they're talking about bringing in, you know, there's people that are dangerous that are on drugs. Everybody knows what people on drugs are like. So, you know, that we're protected with the fire because the infrastructure and everything's going to be in place. But what about the people that they're going to present in our neighborhood? You know what I mean?
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
You or nobody else don't want no drug rehabilitation place beside their house. You don't want no Tiger Haven or nothing like that because it might escape and eat your grandkids.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I know. I know where you're coming from, and that's why what we've been was discussing earlier was this: is that we can only go so far with this before the laws of the state of Tennessee comes in and says you can't go any further. In other words, we could come in here and we could say we understand what this is, and we don't think it's appropriate for that zone. But there's loopholes that they have there that they can use to come in, and the state of Tennessee says, oh, they're this, and this is part of what they get to do, and you can't stop them. And that happens to us.
I mean, in Knoxville down there, they got people cleaning the parking lots down there, and they're talking about, if you read reviews and stuff, they're talking about loaded needles. I know of another place where a place like this is at, they leave the place, they can't lock them up. So they leave the place, meet somebody, get drugs, and go back. And this is, you're talking about this in your neighborhood, you know?
I understand.
And, you know, I know people need a place to go get help, but I don't want them in my backyard, you know? That's it. That's all I got to say. I appreciate you listening to me.
All right. Have you had a belly full? Say, you tell me. I'm just trying to figure out how to jumpstart this, and I looked at that as one possible means. And a lot of times, until we can just get a map out here, and then because it helps you because you get to visualize everything that's there in the county, and you see the trends.
Can you get us the maps that will show both on the parcels, like?
What's
The individual parcels and what
Well,
they're
I mean,
used
the
for.
areas of the thing is their use and what they're zoned now, so we can kind of see where the trends
Right.
are going on this. Can
Can you
you?
get a whole map of the, I've never been able to. I've
Well,
got
individual-
103 of them.
you
I
can-
Yeah, and there's 3 maps?
Three tax maps.
Tax
I've never
maps.
had one that shows the whole county.
Well, we don't have to have the all-in-one map, but what I'm saying, if we start this process, we need to be able to look at different areas.
Yeah, I think you can take like 1 through 20 or 1 month or, you know.
I'll
go
check
through
with
it
my
like that.
GIS person and
And
see.
see if they can put both designations on
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Use
So
and what is zoned now.
you can get,
can go through the state of Tennessee and get through the assessor's office how they've got it, okay? You can pull that map up, and it'll show you the parcels, and it'll show you what it's being used for, okay? That's not an issue, that comes from state comptroller's office, all right? But the zoning map, the only ones that I've got are Tim's, and,
103.
and here's the thing is this, first I thought we wouldn't need the growth boundaries, but we will have to have the growth boundaries because, we're gonna determine, well, I take that back. We won't make a recommendation in the growth boundaries if there's gonna be anything zoned. It would have to come for that region, would it
Yes,
not?
the three, yeah.
Yeah. So I say we come in until we get up to the growth boundaries. At that point in time, if the growth boundary goes away, then we'll have to proceed further. But if the growth boundary stays in place, this board doesn't get to say what those parcels get zoned in there, correct? But the only recommendation they can make is what our zoning designations are. So if we change some of those, as far as that goes, it looks to me like those would have to be changed in the growth boundary, would it not?
Well, yeah, you'd have to go through the cities like we do with everything,
Right.
then the county commission.
All right. So that's you think that's a plan? So next time, hopefully we'll have some maps here and we get a visual idea of what our county basically looks like, the whole county. Because we see it piecemeal so often because that's the way we deal with it. But this is gonna give us to me, a big overlay view of everything that's there, and we may be surprised on some things, and some things we won't be. Because there's gonna be some things in there, so I never realized that. But we're gonna,
You'll see a lot of that.
you'll see some things there that on that.
I will check with my GIS person tomorrow and see what we can come up with and let you know.
You
I'll
know,
call you tomorrow.
what I really wish was, is I wish I had this to where I could get it on a big screen, and then I could pull up each PDF of a map or everything else that's there, and we could compare both maps right there in front of us, even if it's like these screens like this, and then we can review that, and we can see.
Can we not pull that thing down
I
and
guess-
project it? We've got to spend all that technology
I
money.
guess we could.
I think Tim voted for all that technology money.
No idea.
All right.
He just wanted to do this with it, though.
But I mean, we could probably just, rather than just project it on the screen.
Well, there it is. See, John, there you just speak, it didn't happen.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think,
$10.
so that's what I'm gonna look for.
You think they got some
That's what I'm
influence?
gonna
Go
look
to
for
somebody
next
else's
meeting.
house, tell their
Okay.
dog to sit down.
So that'll be next meeting. That's what we're gonna start right there. Any other business?
No, I don't have any.
Let me give you an update on the BES, okay? So it's been before the three cities. Danbury's rolled it, White Pine rolled it, and then Jefferson City voted yes for it. So it has to go, it's gonna go back to Danbridge, probably April the 11th, and then it'll go to White Pine at their meeting. Here's the thing, it's going to county commission at the work session. I don't know what the date is.
10th and the 17th.
10th will be the 10th, and then the 17th will be the vote on it, okay?
That's April.
That's in April, yeah. So, I will tell you that I went there and, some people understand it, but some people had that they were lost, okay? And it's understanding because we worked on this for 6 or 7 months, and we got a lot thrown at us, and you know, as far as it goes, and we heard lots of questions and answers. And then we condensed that into this resolution, and then I had to go there within 20 minutes to try to explain to them what we had done in 6 or 7 months. And some of them just didn't get it, okay? And that's okay, I mean, because it is a lot. Look how long, I mean, you know, we didn't come to any kind of rash decision on it. It took a lot of information. And so, there again, I mean, I knew that would be a problem, but then, you know, you do the best you can. I don't think I said.
Were the people who, did they show up, the people who were promoting the best?
They did. They did, and it
Were
caused.
they helpful?
They were helpful because they, you know, there was questions there that they answered, you know, and I think it was helpful. Like I say, there were members there that understood it, but then there were members there that didn't completely understand. And they were apprehensive as far as that goes. And some of them, after they, you know, I don't know what they received in their packet and how much time they had to study or if they looked at it as far as it goes, but there was some that are saying, you know, I need more time to think about this. So, you know, and I couldn't fault them for it, you know, because like I say, I only knew I had so much time and I had to present to them how we came up with what we came up. And, you know, there were a lot of questions there saying, well, why didn't you do this? Why did you do that? And so forth. And so it ended up being that, you know, that kind of thing as far as it goes. I had to explain how we got to where we got. Well, when you look at it, it was 13 items on there. You get 5 questions on each item. It takes up a lot of time. So that's where we're at. And that's the status on that. So it'll be at the work session. The work session will be a question and answer thing. And I don't know how big agenda. Do you know how big you gonna have a big agenda?
Not terrible.
Okay. Because I don't know how many people I have that want to talk and ask questions
No
about that.
budget? No budget?
You'll
yet?
be fine.
Oh, budget's got a big agenda. We're meeting at 5 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Well,
We may have to recess.
I'm just saying that we, you know, this group will be there as well for any kind of technical questions that may be necessary. All
Got
right.
a special wheel tax for junk cars.
On the map. Put it on the map.
I'll drive 3 of them. I'll buy 3 wheel tax stickers
Listen,
on my junk
here's the
car.
thing, you're gonna have to give a definition of what a junk car is.
What's yours, Ron?
I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. You go ahead, I second Ms.
All those in
motion.
favor? Aye.